My name is Simone and I just turned 29. For the fifth year in a row, my family forgot my birthday. While they were busy planning my sister Chloe's $30,000 engagement party, I was sitting in my old Honda Accord making a 5-hour drive. They thought I was going to buy ice for their party. They had no idea I was on my way to buy a $445,000 beach house. With cash. What I posted on Instagram later that day would tear their perfectly constructed world apart. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever been the invisible one in your family. You will want to see how this ends. It all came to a head last Wednesday. It was my 29th birthday. I pulled up to my parents' house in Atlanta, the one I had grown up in, the one where I always felt like a guest. The smell of roasted chicken and simmering family tension hit me the second I walked in. My mother Brenda was at the kitchen island. She did not look up. Her eyes were glued to a glossy, expensive-looking hotel catalog. "Simone, you're here. Good. Go to the store and get more ice. Chad is coming for dinner, and we have important things to discuss." I stood there for a moment, my keys still in my hand. I had just driven 45 minutes from my apartment after an 8-hour workday. "I just got off work, Mom. And it's Wednesday. It's my birthday." My mother finally looked up and her face was a mask of pure annoyance. "Oh, for God's sake, Simone, this again? What is the difference between 29 and 30? It's just another birthday. Adults don't make a fuss about these things." She tapped the catalog with a perfectly manicured nail. "Look at this. We're picking a venue for your sister's engagement party. The St. Regis or the Four Seasons. Your father thinks we should do the St. Regis, but I think—" The sound of the side door opening cut her off. My sister Chloe floated into the room, followed by her fiancé Chad. Chloe, at 27, was the golden child, the one who had never worked a real day in her life, but somehow had a new Mercedes. Chad, her fiancé, was a smirking, low-level investment guy who looked at everyone like they were beneath him. Chloe, of course, glided right past me as if I were a piece of furniture. "Mom," she whined, "I told you 4 Seasons. The lighting there is so much better for photos. It's more aesthetic." "Chad, tell her." Chad kissed my mother's cheek, completely ignoring me. "Hi, Brenda. The Four Seasons is classic. It shows real class." My mother beamed at him, all thoughts of my birthday erased. "See, Marcus, Chad agrees." Chloe finally turned and seemed to notice me for the first time. She looked me up and down, taking in my simple work slacks and button-down shirt. "Oh, you're still here," she said, her voice dripping with condensation. "I thought you were busy, doing whatever it is you do on that little computer all day." I kept my voice perfectly flat. "It's my birthday, Chloe." Chloe let out a sharp, barking laugh. It was a sound I had hated my entire life. "Really? Wow, it's that time again. Congrats." She waved her hand toward the door. "Now can you please go get the ice? I don't want a warm cocktail. We're celebrating." I looked at my mother, waiting for her to say something. To say anything. She just smiled brightly at Chloe and handed her a glass of wine. My father Marcus walked in from the living room, wiping his hands on a towel. He saw the scene. He saw me standing by the door, and he saw Chloe and Chad laughing with my mother. "Simone," he said, his voice firm. "Listen to your mother. Go get the ice. This is a big day for your sister. Stop causing trouble." That was it. That was the final crack. Not one of them had said it. I looked at the 4 of them huddled together, laughing and pointing at pictures of ballrooms that cost $30,000 for a single night. A party they were planning to pay for by draining their retirement, a fact I knew, and they thought I did not. I stared at them. My mother, my father, my sister, her fiancé. They were my family, and I was completely, utterly invisible to them. "Okay," I said. My voice was quiet, so quiet, I almost did not hear it myself. I turned around and walked out the kitchen door. I got back into my 10-year-old Honda Accord, the car Chloe called my sad little box. I started the engine. I did not drive to the grocery store to get ice. I pulled out of their driveway, turned left, and got on the highway heading east. I had a 5-hour drive ahead of me and a meeting with a real estate agent in Myrtle Beach first thing in the morning. They thought I was going to buy a bag of ice. I was going to buy a house. The hum of the highway was the only sound as I drove. My old Honda Accord, the one Chloe called my sad little box, ate up the miles. 5 hours of road stretched between me and Atlanta. 5 hours of thinking. They thought I was a failure. They thought I was their boring, quiet little data entry girl, the one who lived in a cheap apartment and drove a 10-year-old car. The responsible one they could borrow $500 from for a car repair, while they simultaneously planned to take out a second mortgage to pay for Chloe's $30,000 party. They thought I was driving to Kroger for a bag of ice. The sheer absurdity of it almost made me laugh. They had no idea. My mind replayed the last 5 years. My 28th birthday. They forgot, because Chloe had just hit 30,000 followers on Instagram, and that, according to my mother, required an emergency celebration dinner at a steakhouse. My 27th birthday. They forgot because it was the 1-year anniversary of Chloe getting her Mercedes. The car they had paid the down payment on. My 26th. Chloe had a bad breakup, and my parents had to take her to a spa resort in the mountains to recover. 5 years in a row. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was a statement. It was a choice. I was the background noise of their lives. The reliable, unexciting utility. I was not the daughter they celebrated. I was the daughter they used. I didn't drive back to my apartment. I didn't even slow down as I passed the exit. I drove through the night, the lights of Atlanta fading in my rearview mirror until they were just a dull glow against the dark. I watched the sunrise over the South Carolina state line. I was not running away. I was running to something. The next morning, I was standing in a place that smelled of salt air and fresh paint. The sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows glinting off the Atlantic Ocean. The realtor, a sharp woman in a bright linen suit, was clicking her pen nervously. "Miss Simone, are you absolutely certain?" she asked, her voice professional but laced with a hint of confusion. "This 2-bedroom, 2-bath oceanfront condo is a premium unit. It's listed at $445,000. Now the bank has already pre-approved your mortgage application." I cut her off. I had been waiting to say these words. "A mortgage won't be necessary." I looked past her at the ocean. "I'll be paying in cash." The clicking of the pen stopped. The realtor's eyes widened. "Cash," she stammered. All of it." I pulled my own pen from my bag, a heavy, expensive one I had bought specifically for this moment. "I just sold a significant block of my vested RSUs," I said, my voice as calm as the sea in front of me. "Restricted stock units. My boring fintech job pays very well. That Vovan computer job, as my mother calls it, has bonuses." I placed the pen tip on the signature line of the final closing document. "I'll take it." The realtor's professional mask broke into a genuine, dazzling smile. "Well, that is fantastic. Congratulations, Miss Simone." I signed my name. This was not an impulse. This was not a reaction to yesterday's humiliation. This was a 3-month plan. 3 months of secret phone calls with lawyers, financial advisors, and this very realtor. My family's final pathetic insult wasn't the reason I was doing this. It was just the permission I needed to finally stop feeling guilty about it. It was the moment the scales fell from my eyes, and I realized I didn't owe them my success. I didn't owe them my consideration. I didn't owe them anything. The realtor handed me the keys. They were heavy. They felt like freedom. That same afternoon, the ocean breeze felt different. It felt like it was mine. I was standing on the balcony of my apartment, the wind whipping my hair around my face. The salt was sharp and clean. I had a bottle of Veuve Clicquot in my hand, champagne I had bought for this exact moment. Not for a party, not for a celebration with anyone else. Just for me. The cork popped with a satisfying, definitive sound that echoed out over the waves. I poured myself a tall glass. I picked up my phone. I propped it against the balcony railing, setting the self-timer. I wasn't trying to be an influencer like Chloe. I wasn't posing or trying to sell anything. I just stood there holding my glass high with the vast blue Atlantic stretching out behind me. I had a real smile on my face, a smile they had not seen in years. Before the timer went off, I leaned down and deliberately placed the set of shiny new keys on the small glass table. Next to them, I placed the thick folder from the closing, the one with the law firm's embossed logo clearly visible on the cover. The camera clicked. I looked at the photo. It was perfect. Me. The champagne, the endless ocean. And the proof. The keys and the legal documents. Undeniable. I opened Instagram. My own account was quiet private, mostly pictures of hiking trails and books. But I knew. I knew Chloe checked it every day. I knew my mother checked it. They checked it to see what I was doing to confirm their narrative that my life was small and boring. I was about to give them an update. I uploaded the photo. And then I typed the caption. I savored each word. Birthday present, I paused. To myself. I let that sit for a second. And then the final beautiful devastating line. Family not invited. I hit the share button. I felt a cold, clear wave of certainty wash over me. There was no fear, no regret. It was the calmest I had felt in my entire life. I did not wait to see the like count. I did not wait for the inevitable explosion. I walked back inside my beautiful, quiet apartment. I went to my phone's settings and systematically turned off all notifications. Instagram, text messages, phone calls, all of it. Silence. Then I walked into my new master bathroom, the one with a jacuzzi tub that had its own window looking out at the beach. I turned on the jets. I put on a playlist, some quiet classic jazz. John Coltrane. The saxophone notes filled the air, mixing with the sound of the bubbling water. This was my sanctuary. This was the fortress my boring job and my sad little boxcar had built for me. As the tub filled, I picked up my phone one last time. I did not open Instagram. I opened my text messages. I scrolled back past the unanswered happy birthday texts from my few real friends. I stopped at a message from my mother Brenda 3 weeks ago. Simone, your father's car needs a new transmission. It's $500. Can you help us out? You're so good with your money. $500. They had asked me for $500 while they were simultaneously researching $30,000 party venues. I scrolled down further. A message from Chloe 1 month ago. Hey, can I borrow that old gray sweater of yours, the one you never wear? I need something to donate for a charity photo op. A photo op. Not even for actual charity. Just to pretend. I looked at these messages, these tiny, constant reminders of what I was to them. A resource, an afterthought, an ATM, a closet they could borrow from. A cold, hard smile touched my lips. I turned the phone completely off. Not on silent. Off. I dropped it onto the plush queen-size bed in my guest room, went back into the bathroom and closed the door. I stepped into the hot, bubbling water and sank down until it covered my shoulders. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let the peace wash over me. The storm was about to break, but for the first time in my life, I was high and dry. I was safe. And I was ready. I had no idea what was happening back in Atlanta. I learned about it later, pieced together from the angry voicemails and Chad's eventual groveling confession. While I was sinking into that hot, peaceful bath, my phone, which I'd left in the guest room, had begun to melt down. The first bomb had landed exactly as I knew it would. Back in Atlanta, in my parents' kitchen, Chloe was in her element. She was doing a live stream on Instagram, her phone propped up against a stack of cookbooks. She was unboxing a free PR gift, a cheap rose-scented moisturizer that had probably cost the company $5. Oh my God, you guys! She was cooing to her phone, her influencer voice perfectly practiced. This serum is just everything. The glow is absolutely insane. You all have to try it. I'll link it in my... Her monologue was cut short. A comment popped up on her live feed. It wasn't from one of her usual adoring fans. It was from a mutual acquaintance, someone who followed both of us. Wow, Chloe. Did your sister just buy a beach house? She's loaded? Why are you pushing this cheap stuff? Chloe froze. Her smile, which she had painted on, faltered. Another comment appeared. Then another. Wait, I just saw it. Family not invited. Ouch. Damn, that's a penthouse view at the Grand. That's serious money. Chloe, is your family okay? LOL. Chloe's face, according to Chad, turned a shade of white he had never seen before. She fumbled with the phone, her hands shaking, and abruptly ended the live stream. For a second, there was silence. My mother Brenda was at the table still looking at the St. Regis catalog. What's wrong, honey? Brenda asked, not looking up. Did the internet go down again? And then Chloe screamed. It was not a sad scream. It was a raw, furious shriek that rattled the wine glasses on the counter. Mother, Dad, that bitch, look what Simone posted. My mother, startled, dropped the catalog. What? What are you talking about? Language, Chloe. Chloe shoved her phone into my mother's face. Brenda squinted at the screen. Her eyes scanned the caption. Her face went from confused to pale to a deep, blotchy red. Family, not invited, my mother whispered, her voice trembling. She wouldn't. She wouldn't dare. Chad, who had been in the living room with my father, walked in. What's all the yelling about, Brenda? You look like you've seen a ghost. Chloe snatched the phone back. Look what your quiet sister-in-law did. Chad took the phone. He was a numbers guy. He didn't see the family drama first. He saw the asset. He zoomed in on the photo. His eyes scanned past my smiling face, past the champagne, and zeroed in on the details. Hold on, he said slowly, his voice changing. That's Myrtle Beach. Wait, that's the Grand. Holy hell. A condo there, oceanfront, that's $500,000. Easy. My mother scoffed, her voice high and nervous. Don't be ridiculous, Chad. It's an Airbnb. She's rented a room for the weekend to make us feel bad. That's what she does. She's always been jealous of Chloe. No, Chad said. He was still staring at the phone, his thumb zooming in further and further. No, Brenda. This isn't an Airbnb. He pointed at the table in the photo. That's a closing packet. I recognize the logo. That's a major law firm in Atlanta, and those are the keys. The master keys, the fobs. She didn't rent this. She bought it. My father, Marcus, had been silent until then. Bought it with what she drives, that old Honda. She works on her computer. Chad finally looked up, his eyes wide with a strange mix of fury and calculation. $445,000. That's the base price for a 2-bedroom. Probably more. She paid cash. She must have. To close that fast. A heavy, thick silence filled the kitchen. The only sound was the leftover sizzle of the chicken in the oven. The illusion had been shattered. The quiet, unsuccessful daughter, the family ATM, the sad little box driver, had just dropped a $500,000 bomb on their entire narrative. The shock quickly curdled into pure rage. My mother was the first to speak, her voice a low hiss. Who does she think she is? After everything we've done for her. Hiding that much money, while her father just lost his job, while her sister, Chloe, was already dialing my number. She has to take this down now. She is ruining my engagement. She's making us look like fools. The call went straight to voicemail because my phone was off. She tried again. Voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. My mother grabbed her phone. My father grabbed his. Chad even started calling. Back in the guest room, my phone, now off, was blissfully silent. But if it had been on, it would have been buzzing itself off the table. 20 missed calls, 35 text messages, a stream of furious, panicked, entitled voicemails. Simone, you pick up this phone right now. I don't know what sick joke this is, but you are to take that post down. How dare you humiliate this family? You ungrateful, selfish girl, you call me back now. The storm had broken, and I was in the bath with the jazz playing, smiling. The next morning I woke up to the sound of seagulls. Not traffic, not my upstairs neighbors. Seagulls. I made a cup of coffee in my brand new kitchen and walked out onto the balcony. The ocean was calm, a sheet of blue glass reflecting the morning sun. I sat in one of the new patio chairs I'd had delivered, breathing in the salt air. I felt still, peaceful. After about an hour, I decided it was time. I walked back inside, retrieved my phone from the guest room, and powered it on. It was an explosion, a digital avalanche, 47 missed calls, 99 plus text messages, a wall of notifications from Instagram. My screen lit up like a Christmas tree of pure concentrated rage. I smiled, went back to the balcony, and set my coffee cup down. I scrolled through the missed calls. Mother, mother, Chloe. Father, mother, Chloe, Chad. I decided to call my mother back. I pressed the number and put the phone on speaker, placing it on the small table in front of me. It didn't even ring once. She must have been holding the phone. Simone. The shriek was so loud it distorted the speaker. I had to pull my head back. What are you doing? What is the meaning of this? Who do you think you are, posting something like that? Family not invited. Are you trying to humiliate this family? I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee. The warmth spread through my chest. I looked out at the ocean. Good morning, Mother. I said, my voice perfectly level. I just posted a picture of my birthday present. My mother sounded like she was choking. Your birthday. You're posting this arrogance all over the internet because we forgot your birthday. You didn't forget, Mom, I said, still calm. Forgetting is an accident. You chose not to remember. For 5 years, I just chose to celebrate it this year, by myself. There was a sputtering sound on the other end. My calmness, my refusal to scream back, had completely thrown her off script. You, where did you get that kind of money? She hissed. That stupid little job playing on the computer? Did you borrow it? Did you get into trouble with loan sharks? Simone, I swear to God if you've gotten into debt. Do you have any idea what this family is? She stopped herself. She had almost said it. She had almost admitted that they were the ones in trouble. I've told you many times, Mom, I said as if explaining it to a child. I am a senior data analyst for a major fintech corporation. I don't play on the computer. I design data architecture. And as I said, I used my savings. It's called investing. It's called stock options. You should look it up. You ungrateful. You did this to humiliate me. Suddenly, a new voice shrieked so high-pitched it made me wince. Chloe. She must have ripped the phone from our mother's hand. Didn't you? You knew. You knew Chad and I were about to announce our engagement? You knew this was my time. You're just a jealous, pathetic, dried-up bitch. I picked up my coffee cup again. I swirled it, watching the steam rise. Hello, Chloe, I said. I'm having a hard time understanding the logic. How exactly does me buying myself a birthday present have anything to do with your engagement? Because everyone is texting me, she screamed. Her voice was cracking. All my friends, all my followers. They're asking me why my sister is suddenly a millionaire. They're asking why I'm peddling skin cream when you're buying a beach house. You're making me look like a failure. You're ruining my brand. Your brand? I asked. I see. So this isn't about family. This is about your social media image. You have to take it down, Chloe shrieked. You hear me? You have to delete that post now, and you have to tell everyone it was a joke. Tell them you rented it. Tell them. No, I said. There was a dead silence on the other end. What? What did you say? Chloe whispered. I said no. I will not be taking it down. I will not be lying to protect your brand. This is my house. This is my post, and I am done. I pressed the red end call button. The silence that followed was beautiful. It was just me, the seagulls, and the sound of the waves. I took another sip of my coffee. It was still hot. Back in Atlanta, the silence that followed the disconnected call was heavier and more toxic than the argument itself. Chloe stood there, her mouth open, the phone still in her hand. Brenda was trembling, her face a mask of such pure, undiluted rage that it was almost frightening. Marcus just looked confused, running a hand over his head. It was Chad who broke the silence. He wasn't yelling. He was calculating. He started to pace the kitchen, his mind the mind of a low-level investment broker clicking away. Unbelievable, he muttered almost to himself. Then louder to all of them. She was hiding it. All this time she was hiding it. He looked at Brenda and Marcus. A $450,000 condo, at minimum, and she paid cash. You heard her. Stock options. That means she didn't just have the purchase price. She had to have at least another 100, maybe 150,000 liquid to make a move like that without batting an eye. Brenda Marcus. Exactly how much does she make? My father. Marcus just shook his head, completely lost. I don't know. She said something about data, but she just drives that old Honda. She lives in that tiny apartment. How? Chad let out a short, harsh laugh. It's called stealth wealth, Marcus. The quiet ones are the ones you have to watch. She's been playing us, all of us. She's been sitting on a mountain of cash watching you all struggle. The word struggle was a trigger. It was the match that lit my mother's fuse. Her panic finally boiled over, but it didn't come out as fear. It came out as righteous fury. Struggle, she hissed, her eyes wide. Struggle, my God, Marcus. If she had that kind of money, if she was sitting on a mountain of cash, then why? Her voice rose to a screech. Why did she let us take out that second mortgage? Why did she let us risk this house? Our house, to pay for Chloe's debts. This was it, the truth that had been hiding behind the St. Regis catalog and the talk of $30,000 parties. Brenda turned on Marcus. Why wasn't she helping? She's the oldest. She's supposed to help. She let her sister run up those credit cards. She let her father get retired early and didn't offer a single dime. What kind of daughter is that? My father's confusion instantly hardened into anger. But his anger, as always, was pointed in the wrong direction. It wasn't at Chloe for her spending or at himself for his pride. It was at me. She's selfish, Marcus growled, slamming his fist on the counter. That's what this is. Pure, uncut selfishness. She knew I lost my job. She knew this family was on the line, and she went and bought a party house at the beach. Chad saw his opening. He stopped pacing and put his hands on both my mother's and my father's shoulders like a preacher calming his flock. Listen to me, he said, his voice now smooth and urgent. We cannot let that money just sit there. It's not right. This is family money. Chloe deserves her wedding. This family deserves to be taken care of. He looked directly at my father. Marcus, you are her father. You are the head of this house. You can't let her do this. You have to go down there and lay down the law. She has a responsibility to this family. That money belongs to all of you, not just her. My mother's eyes, which had been wild with panic, suddenly focused. They lit up with a new, dangerous idea. Chad is right, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He is absolutely right. She owes us. She owes her sister. She owes this family. Marcus, go get the keys. We're driving to Myrtle Beach, tonight. My father nodded, his face set in grim determination. We'll talk some sense into her. Chloe, who had been watching this all unfold with a pout, suddenly clapped her hands. Her tears and anger vanished, replaced by a bright, shallow excitement. A beach trip? Oh, perfect! She squealed, already pulling out her phone. I can finally wear my new string bikini. I needed a vacation anyway. And Chad, we can take so many pictures at her new place. My followers will love it. My father just grunted and went to find his car keys. My mother was already halfway up the stairs yelling about packing an overnight bag. They weren't going to visit. They were going to invade. I had just rolled up my yoga mat. The sun was high over the ocean, flooding my new living room with light. I felt centered, calm, and strong. I was pouring a glass of lemon water when the sound ripped through my peace. It was not a polite knock. It was a long, angry, impatient ringing of the doorbell over and over. My heart didn't pound, it just stopped. I put down my glass and walked slowly to the door. I did not want to open it. I wanted to pretend I was not there. But I knew this was coming. This was the other side of the war I had declared. I looked through the peephole. It was them. All four of them. My mother Brenda, my father Marcus, my sister Chloe, and her fiancé Chad. They were crowded around the doorway, looking wrinkled, tired, and furious. They had driven 5 hours through the night. The sight of them huddled together like a pack of angry wolves confirmed everything. I took a deep breath. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. But I did not move. I stood firmly in the entryway, blocking their path. "What are you doing here?" My voice was cold. It surprised even me. My mother's face, already pinched with anger, contorted. "What are we—" "How dare you ask us that?" she shrieked, and she physically shoved me aside. She pushed me, her own daughter, stumbling back into my new foyer. "We are your family. We drove all night. You don't hang up on us. You don't—" She stopped mid-rant. Her eyes went wide. She was standing in the middle of my living room, staring. She took in the high-end furniture I'd had delivered, the 75-inch television, the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the endless million-dollar view of the ocean. Her jaw went slack. "My God!" She breathed, all the anger momentarily forgotten. This is nice." "Nice!" Chloe screamed, pushing past both me and my mother. She didn't even look at the furniture. Her eyes were locked on the balcony. "Oh my God, this view!" She sprinted, her heels clacking on the new hardwood floors, and burst through the sliding glass door. "Chad, look at this. This is perfect. This is 1,000 times better than the resort. The lighting is amazing." She was already pulling her phone out, tossing her hair back and arching her back in a practiced pose. "Chad, take my picture right now." My father was the last one in. He walked in heavily, carrying a duffel bag which he dropped on my new white area rug. He looked at me with the deep, profound disappointment he had perfected over the course of my life. "Simone," he said, his voice a low rumble, "you've caused a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble." They were all inside. They had invaded. My sanctuary was breached. And then the entitlement, the behavior that I had lived with my entire life, kicked in. They were not guests. In their minds, they were owners. My mother Brenda recovered from her shock. She marched straight past the kitchen, down the hall, and opened the door to my guest bedroom. "This one will be perfect for your father and me," she announced to no one in particular. "It has a good view of the side beach." Chloe, meanwhile, came back in from the balcony, unhappy that Chad was looking at the apartment's finishes instead of her. She strutted directly into the master bedroom. My bedroom. She tossed her Louis Vuitton knockoff bag onto my new king-size bed, right on the white comforter. "I'll take this room with Chad," she declared. She turned and looked at me, standing frozen by the door, and gave me that familiar dismissive smirk. "You can sleep on the sofa, Simone. You're used to it anyway." That was it. That single line. You're used to it. Because for my entire life, when family visited, I was the one who gave up my bed. I was the one who slept on the floor on the couch in the drafty attic room. I was the afterthought. And here in my $445,000 home, she still expected me to be the afterthought. I stood there by the door, my glass of lemon water still in my hand. The ice cubes clinked. My face, which had been calm, felt like it was turning to stone. I looked at my mother, claiming my guest room. I looked at my sister making herself at home in my bed. I took a slow breath. What? I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Do you think you are doing? They had spread out in my living room like an occupying force. My father Marcus took the main armchair, the one I had picked out, and slouched in it, trying to look patriarchal. My mother Brenda was perched on the edge of the sofa, wringing her hands, her face a practiced mask of maternal concern. Chloe was sprawled on the other end of the couch, already on her phone, presumably texting all her friends that she was at my sister's beach house. And Chad. Chad was standing by the window, not looking at the view, but looking at me. He was silent, observing, calculating. I remained standing by the kitchen counter, my untouched glass of lemon water in my hand. I was not going to sit. I was not going to be comfortable. This was not a visit. It was a confrontation. My father cleared his throat. It was his family meeting sound. The sound that always came before a lecture, always directed at me. Simone. He began, his voice trying for a deep, commanding tone but just sounding tired. Your mother and I, we are very, very disappointed in you. I waited. I said nothing. My silence unnerved him. He was used to me flinching, apologizing, or just looking at the floor. You're the oldest, he continued, gaining a little steam. You're supposed to be the responsible one, and to find out that you've been hiding all this wealth, from your own family, while he looked at my mother, while we've been struggling. You didn't say a word. You didn't offer to help. You just ran off and bought this. He waved his hand dismissively at my beautiful new home. It's selfish, Simone. It's pure selfishness. I felt my eyebrows raise. The accusation was so familiar, it was almost comforting. Struggling, I asked, my voice as calm and clear as the glass in my hand. Is that what you call it? I looked at Chloe, who was still texting, oblivious. You were struggling last week when Chloe posted that new Gucci bag she splurged on. You were struggling last night when you were debating between the St. Regis and the Four Seasons for a $30,000 engagement party. My father's face turned red. He had no answer for logic. He just had emotions. That's different. It's for appearances. My mother suddenly shrieked, her mask of concern cracking, revealing the raw panic beneath. She stood up, her hands clasped in front of her. Don't you understand anything? We have to keep up appearances. People are watching us, watching Chloe. We can't let them think we're failing. And then the dam broke. The truth, the real ugly truth they had been hiding behind their expensive plans, came pouring out. Your father lost his job, she cried, and this time the tears looked real. They retired him, pushed him out, 2 months ago. We didn't know what to do. All our savings, our retirement. We've been using it to keep Chloe afloat, to pay for her brand, to pay for this wedding. We are drowning, Simone. The confession hung in the air. It was the first time they had admitted any of it to me. The panic in my mother's voice was real. The shame on my father's face was real. They were drowning. And here I was in my oceanfront lifeboat, and they were furious that I hadn't offered them a ride. I processed the information. Fired, drained retirement, drowning. I looked from my mother's tear-streaked face to my father's bowed head. I felt a familiar, tired ache. But it wasn't sympathy, it was just resignation. This was who they were. I took a sip of my water, and my mother stopped crying. She looked at me completely baffled. And, she whispered, what do you mean? And did you not hear me? We're in trouble. Your father. And Chloe's sharp voice cut through the entire room. She finally put her phone down, her face twisted in an ugly, impatient pout. She was done with the emotional drama. She was here for the transaction. And, she repeated, standing up and walking over to me, you have to help. That's what. That $30,000 party we can't, well, Mom and Dad can't pay for it anymore, obviously. She looked at me as if I were a particularly stupid child. So, she said, drawing the word out, since you went and selfishly spent all this money on this stupid apartment instead of helping your family when we needed you, you're just going to have to be the one to pay for my engagement party. She smiled a small, tight smile, as if she had just solved a simple math problem. It's $30,000. You obviously have it. It's the least you can do. The silence that fell on the room was absolute. It was so quiet, I could hear the faint sound of the waves from the balcony. My father and my mother. They weren't shocked. They weren't horrified by their daughter's demand. They were nodding. My mother was wiping her tears, a look of grim agreement on her face. My father was looking at me, his expression now expectant. This was it. This was the real reason they had driven 5 hours. I looked at Chloe. At her perfectly made up, perfectly entitled, perfectly heartless face. I looked at the three of them, a united front of desperation and greed. They had come to my home to present me with an invoice for my own neglect. I didn't feel anger, not yet. I just felt a strange, cold, bubbling sensation in my chest. It was almost laughter. The sheer, breathtaking audacity. It was almost funny. I started to laugh. It was not a small chuckle. It was a loud, full, unrestrained laugh, the kind that comes from deep in your belly. It was the laugh of someone who has just seen the punchline to the cruelest, most absurd joke in the world. I laughed. I laughed in my sister's stunned, entitled face. I laughed at my mother's tear-streaked, manipulative expression. I laughed at my father's pathetic, broken-down attempt at authority. The laughter cut through the tension in the room like a knife. They all just stared at me. This was not the reaction they had prepared for. They wanted tears, they wanted yelling, they wanted me to be weak. They did not know how to handle my joy. Chad, the calculating one, was the first to speak. His face was a mask of annoyance. "What's so funny?" he snapped. I finally managed to get my breath, wiping a tear from the corner of my eye. "What's funny?" I repeated, my voice still shaking with mirth. "What's funny is the audacity, the sheer breathtaking platinum-level nerve of all of you." I pointed a finger at Chloe. You waltz into my home after my family forgot my birthday for the 5th year in a row, and you present me with an invoice. You want me to pay $30,000 for your party?" I took a step closer, my smile gone replaced by something cold and hard. "And just so we're clear, Chloe, since we're talking about money, I know you're $22,000 in debt to American Express. Your minimum payments are choking you. You're not struggling. You're drowning." The effect was instantaneous. All the color drained from Chloe's face. She looked like she had been slapped. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "How?" she finally whispered, her voice trembling. How did you know that?" Before I could answer, Chad turned on her. His face was not loving. It was furious. "What?" he hissed, his voice low and dangerous. 22,000. You told me you paid that off. You told me that was all handled." Chloe flinched. I was going to Chad, Oh, this is Rich," I said, walking past them to my briefcase. I pulled out my laptop. "You know, this whole time, my whole life, you've all treated me like I was the stupid one, the boring one, the sad little box girl who just clicks keys." I walked over to the 75-inch smart TV, the one my mother had been admiring, and pulled an HDMI cable from my bag. I plugged it into my laptop. "You all want to talk about money. You came into my house to talk about my money." My laptop screen flickered and then appeared massive on the wall. "Fine. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about all of it." My mother squinted. "What is this Simone Moore of your computer games?" "No, Mom," I said as I opened a file. "It's my job. I'm a senior data analyst. I analyze patterns, I find hidden information, and for the last 10 years my favorite side project has been you." The file opened. On the massive screen, a clean, professional, and absolutely devastating Excel spreadsheet filled the view. The title at the top was large and clear: Family Expense Analysis Last 10 Years. Brenda and Marcus just stared, uncomprehending. But Chad knew exactly what he was looking at. His face went pale. I started this. I explained, my voice as calm as a news anchor's, back when I was in college. I just wanted to see where all the money went. It became a hobby. I clicked a tab. Let's start with 2015, shall we? A new section of the spreadsheet filled the screen. Item: Chloe's 21st birthday. Expense: all-inclusive trip to Las Vegas for Chloe and 5 friends. Cost $12,000. My mother gasped. We told you that was a bonus your father got. You did, I said, not looking at her. But I saw the bank transfer from your 401k hardship withdrawal. I clicked again. 2017. Item: Chloe's first influencer car. Expense: down payment on Mercedes C300. Cost $8,000. Chloe flushed. That was a gift. It was a loan, Chloe, I said. One you never made a single payment on. I kept clicking. Faster. 2019. Item: Chloe's credit card bailout number 1. Expense: Chase Sapphire Reserve. Total debt paid by mom and dad, $15,500. 2021. Item: Chloe's credit card bailout number 2. Expense: American Express Gold. Total debt paid by mom and dad, $22,000. The very debt you've already managed to rack up again, Chloe. Chad was staring at Chloe with an expression of pure disgust. And my personal favorite, I said, my voice dripping with ice. 2023. Item: Chloe's Influencer Support Fund. Expense: cash withdrawal from a new home equity line of credit. The second mortgage on your house, mom and dad. I looked right at them. They looked like they had been physically struck. They were exposed, naked. All their lies, all their sacrifices for their golden child laid bare on a 75-inch screen for everyone, including her new fiancé, to see. Total? $30,000, I finished. The exact amount you're now trying to get from me. I let the image of that $30,000 loan hang in the air for a long, painful moment. I watched my mother's face crumple. I watched my father's hands clench and unclench. I watched Chad's eyes narrow doing the quick, dirty math of his future family-in-law. Then I used the remote and clicked to the very last line of the spreadsheet. It was a summary line, a single row at the bottom highlighted in a stark, cold gray. And here, I said, my voice quiet, is the final analysis. The text on the screen was simple. Item: birthday gifts, graduation gifts, or financial support for Simone past 10 years. Next to it in the cost column was the number. $0.00. A grand total, I continued, of $142,500, not including interest, all poured into a 27-year-old healthy, able-bodied adult, all while I clicked to another tab. This one was my story. While I paid off $60,000 in my own student loans, the ones I got from a state school because you said you couldn't afford to help me with a private one. I paid for it with 3 jobs in college. I paid for it with academic scholarships you told me were nerdy and unsocial. I looked at my mother. You remember, don't you, Mom? You said I was wasting my youth by working in the library instead of going to parties like Chloe. I looked at my father. And you? You remember when I lived at home for 2 years after graduation? You remember that, right? You thought I was being cheap. You were saving money. My father stammered, his face dark red. That's what responsible people do. Oh, I was saving money, I agreed. But I was also paying you $500 a month, in cash, every first of the month, for rent. Brenda's head snapped up. We needed the help. The house is expensive. For my old attic room. I finished for her, my voice like ice. The one with no insulation and a window that didn't close properly. $500 a month. For 2 years. Do you know what's really funny about that, Dad? I leaned in, and for the first time I let the raw, unfiltered anger show in my eyes. For that entire 2-year period with my sad little computer job, I was already earning more than you. The silence in the room was absolute. It was so total I could hear the air conditioner kick on. My father's shame, his pride, his entire identity as the provider of the house had just been shattered. You are lying, he whispered, his voice shaking. He wasn't yelling, he was broken. You're lying. You drove that piece of junk. He pointed out the window at my Honda. You bought your clothes at Target. You are lying. He was desperate. He needed me to be lying. Because if I was telling the truth, his entire world, his entire perception of his family was a fraud. Am I said. I clicked the remote again. The Excel sheet vanished. In its place, a PDF. A simple black and white document. My pay stub from 2 weeks ago. This, I said, is my last pay stub. I zoomed in. Last year's totals, here. You're a numbers man, Dad. You read it for me. He wouldn't look. He just stared at the floor. Fine, I said. I'll read it for you. I pointed at the screen. Base salary $160,000. Brenda let out a sound, a strangled sob. Chloe just looked blank, like the number was so big her brain couldn't even process it. And here, I said, pointing to the next line. Vested stock bonus, sold last month, the money I used to buy this apartment. I let them see the number, $42,000. I turned to them. Total compensation last year, $202,000. I let the number hang there, just like I had let the spreadsheet hang there. I drive that Honda, I said, my voice soft now, because it is paid for. I drive it because I don't need a car to tell me what I'm worth. I bought my clothes at Target so I could own this building. I don't owe anyone, not the bank, not the credit card companies. I looked at all 4 of them one by one. My father broken. My mother crying. My sister in total shock. What about you? The room was silent, but I could see out of the corner of my eye the one person who wasn't shocked. Just calculating. Chad, the investment broker. His eyes were not on me. They were not on his sobbing fiancée. His eyes were glued to the $202,000 number on the screen. He was running the math, and in his face I saw the unmistakable dawning realization. He had hitched his wagon to the wrong sister. The truth was too much. The numbers on the screen were too clear, too cold, too final. Chloe faced with the irrefutable proof of her own failures, and my success did not crumble. She did not cry in shame, she ignited. She let out a scream that was pure animal rage. "You're stalking us!" she shrieked, her face contorting. She grabbed one of my new expensive throw pillows from the sofa and threw it at the 75-inch television. It bounced harmlessly off the screen. "You're a psycho! A sick, twisted psycho!" She was pacing now, her hands clawing at her hair, her influencer mask completely gone, replaced by the face of a cornered, desperate child. You've been spying on us. You've been collecting data on your own family. Who does that? Oh my God, you're sick. You're sick in the head, Simone." The narrative had to shift. It could not be about her debt. It had to be about my crime. "You did all this just because you're jealous!" she screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You've always been jealous. You're jealous because I'm pretty, and you're jealous because I have Chad, and I have friends, and I have a life, and what do you have?" She gestured wildly around the room. A stupid, empty, expensive apartment. You're just a boring, pathetic little mousy nerd that nobody has ever wanted, and you can't stand to see me happy." She finally turned to Chad, her face collapsing into a mask of practiced hysterical tears. "Chad, baby, do you see this? This is what I've been telling you about. This is the The cruelty I've had to live with. She hates me. She's always hated me. She's just trying to ruin our happiness. She's trying to destroy our engagement. This was it. The dramatic appeal. All eyes in the room should have turned to Chad to see the loving fiancé rush to his distraught bride-to-be. But Chad was not looking at Chloe. He wasn't looking at her at all. His body was completely still. His eyes were not on his hysterical fiancée. His eyes were glued to the television screen. He was staring at the PDF of my pay stub. His gaze was fixed on the total compensation line. $202,000. I watched him. I could literally see the gears turning behind his pale blue eyes. He was an investment guy, and right now he was doing the math. On one side of the ledger, his fiancée Chloe, $52,000 in active high-interest credit card debt. A credit score of 515. A brand that required a constant $30,000 cash infusion from her parents' failing retirement fund. And on the other side of the ledger, me, the boring, mousy nerd, a $445,000 asset paid in cash, no debt, and an annual renewable documented income of over $200,000. He had bet on the show pony, and he just realized the sad little box driver was the one who owned the entire stable. He did not move. He did not comfort Chloe. He simply slowly blinked. Then he straightened his tie. He smoothed the front of his shirt. He cleared his throat, and he turned to me. When he spoke, his voice was completely different. The arrogance was gone. The dismissal was gone. It was replaced by a silky, false, honey-sweet tone that made the hairs on my arms stand up. "Simone," he said, walking towards me, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Simone, listen. Let's all just take a breath. She's upset." He gestured vaguely at Chloe. We're all just a little emotional." He came closer. "We didn't know," he said, his voice dropping, becoming intimate. "We had no idea you were this successful. This is incredibly impressive. 200,000 a year plus options. That's serious. That's really, really impressive, Simone." He smiled, a new smile. A smile that tried to say, "You and I were the smart ones here. You see, with your financial discipline, your clear talent for numbers, and with my connections in the investment world." He was getting to the pitch. I cut him off. My voice was like a chip of ice. "What do you want, Chad?" He didn't miss a beat. The smile just got wider. He tried to put a hand on my shoulder, a gesture of partnership. I stepped back. He didn't care. "Listen," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "This house. This is a great asset. A fantastic start. But you're exposed holding it like this. As an individual, the tax implications. It's inefficient. You're not protected." He gestured to my parents, who were now watching him with desperate, hopeful eyes. "What a smart family does. What we should do is move this asset into a family trust. You protect it from creditors. It's much safer tax-wise. Your parents," he said, nodding to them like a benevolent king. "They can be co-owners, for their security in their retirement." And then the final venomous little cherry on top. "And Chloe and I, we can manage it for you. We can handle the upkeep, the operations. That way," he smiled, it's fairer for everyone. It becomes a true family asset." The shift in the room was electric. The moment Chad said the words family trust, my mother's entire demeanor changed. Her tears vanished. The panic was replaced by a bright, greedy hope. She clapped her hands together. "Yes!" she exclaimed, her voice suddenly strong. "Oh, Chad. That is brilliant. A family trust. See, Simone, that's what family is. We all help each other. We protect each other. That is such a wonderful, smart idea." My father Marcus, who had been sitting like a broken statue, suddenly straightened up. He had a new purpose. His authority, which had been stripped away by my pay stub, was now being handed back to him by his future son-in-law. "That's right," he said, his voice regaining its deep patriarchal rumble. "That's exactly right. You need to protect this, all this, from yourself, Simone. You, you don't know how to manage this kind of money. It's too much for you. You've never had it. Chad will help. He knows about these things." The audacity. The sheer breathtaking astronomical audacity of it. They had just seen on a 75-inch screen a decade's worth of meticulous financial tracking. They had just seen a pay stub for $202,000. They had just been confronted with the fact that I had paid off $60,000 in loans and saved enough to buy a $500,000 property, all while they were driving their own family into foreclosure. And now, not 5 minutes later, they were telling me I didn't know how to manage money. I had to fight to keep my face straight. I had to physically stop myself from laughing again. This was the moment. This was the precise, perfect, beautiful moment I had been waiting for. All my preparation, all my quiet, hidden work. It was all leading to this. The trap was set. The bait had been taken. And now the predator who thought he was a genius was about to walk right into it. I looked at Chad. I looked at his smug, self-satisfied smile. He genuinely believed he had just outsmarted me. He believed he had just successfully maneuvered himself into a position to control my assets. I let a small, genuine smile touch my lips. "A family trust," I said, my voice filled with a fake, thoughtful consideration. "You know, Chad, that's a brilliant idea. A truly wonderful idea." My mother beamed. My father nodded, satisfied. Chad's smile widened. He had won. "In that case," I continued, turning back to my laptop, "I think you're absolutely right. This is a serious financial decision. We absolutely should get a lawyer involved." I clicked on my desktop. "So let's call mine." The confidence in the room faltered for a half-second. You have a lawyer?" Chad asked, a flicker of something in his eyes. But his arrogance quickly reasserted itself. He let out a small, condescending laugh. "Oh, of course. A local real estate attorney, I'm sure, to handle the closing." He waved his hand dismissively. "That's fine. Great. Put her on the phone. I can walk her through the finer points of setting up a trust. It's what I do." "Oh, she's not just a real estate attorney," I said as I clicked the video call icon on my screen. "But you're right. She's been expecting your call." The television screen, which still showed my pay stub, flickered. A video call window popped up. It was ringing. "What is this?" my mother asked, suddenly suspicious. "Just wait," I said. The call connected. The pay stub PDF vanished, replaced by the live video feed of a woman's face. She was a black woman, probably in her late 50s. She was not in a beach house. She was in a high-rise corner office, a stunning view of the Atlanta skyline behind her. She wore a sharp dark blue power suit and glasses that probably cost more than my father's car. She was not smiling. Her expression was one of pure, no-nonsense professionalism. Chad, who had been standing there with a smug look, went rigid. His face went from smug to confused to pale. He went in a single second from a confident predator to a very, very small, very frightened child. He recognized her. I knew he would. "Hello, Cynthia," I said brightly into my laptop's microphone. "Thank you for taking the time. Everyone is here just like we discussed." Cynthia Williams, the single most feared corporate and financial litigator in the state of Georgia, looked into the camera. She did not look at me. She looked somehow at all of them, her gaze sweeping the room. "So, I see," she said, her voice a deep, smooth, and utterly terrifying baritone. "Chad," I said, turning to him. His mouth was open. He was as white as a sheet. "This is Cynthia Williams, my attorney. You said you wanted to talk to her about— What was it, my inefficient assets, please? Go ahead. Walk her through it. It's what you do." The tension in the living room was so thick it was hard to breathe. Chad was frozen, his blood drained from his face. He was staring at the woman on the television, his mouth slightly open. He knew exactly who she was. I, on the other hand, smiled warmly. "Good morning, Cynthia," I said, my voice bright and clear. "Thank you so much for joining us on such short notice. As you can see, my family is here. My mother, Brenda, my father, Marcus, and my sister, Chloe." I then gestured to the pale, trembling man by the window. "And this is Chad, Chloe's fiancé." The woman on the screen, Cynthia Williams, did not smile. Her gaze was sharp enough to cut glass. She gave a single curt nod. "Good morning, everyone," she said. Her voice was a deep, smooth baritone that commanded total authority. It was a voice that did not tolerate nonsense. "I am Cynthia Williams. I serve as Miss Simone's financial and corporate counsel." "Cynthia," I began, my tone one of polite inquiry. "We were just having the most fascinating discussion. Chad here made a wonderful suggestion. He proposed that I move this new apartment, my asset, into a family trust." I watched Chad flinch as I spoke. He and Chloe graciously offered to manage this trust for me, to be fair to my parents who would be co-owners. As my counsel, Cynthia, I was just wondering what your thoughts were on their financial standing as fiduciaries. I had used the word fiduciary, the legal trigger. Cynthia Williams' face remained perfectly, terrifyingly impassive. She glanced at a second monitor, one I could not see, but one I knew was filled with the files I had paid her to compile. "A family trust," she said, her voice flat. "I see." She looked back at the camera. "An interesting proposal." She paused, and the silence in the room was deafening. "However," she continued, "in preparation for this meeting, Miss Simone authorized me to run a standard high-level due diligence check on all present parties who might be considered for such a role." Her eyes seemed to lock onto my parents. "Let's start with Mr. Marcus and Mrs. Brenda, shall we?" "My mother." Brenda looked up, a flicker of her old defiance in her eyes. "What about us?" Cynthia did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "According to public records, your primary residence at 450 Oakwood Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, is currently in active foreclosure." The air left the room. My mother's defiance vanished, replaced by a look of pure animal panic. "What? No, that's a mistake." Cynthia simply continued reading from her file. "You are 45 days past due on a $40,000 home equity line of credit which you drew down in a single lump sum 18 months ago. A foreclosure auction is scheduled by the bank in 45 days. My mother let out a high, thin sound like a balloon popping. She put her hand to her chest. My father, Marcus, just deflated. He visibly sank into the chair, his entire body caving in on itself. He just stared at the floor, his face a sickly gray. Cynthia's gaze, cold and impersonal, moved on. "And Miss Chloe?" Chloe, who had been watching my parents, now looked like a deer in the headlights. "Me," she squeaked. "My report indicates," Cynthia said, "that you are currently carrying $52,800 in unsecured credit card debt. This debt is spread across 4 different cards, all of which are now listed as 90 days or more delinquent." "No," Chloe whispered. That's a lie." Cynthia ignored her completely. "Your current FICO credit score as of 8 a.m. this morning is 515. There it was. The number. The unanswerable fact. Cynthia Williams finally leaned forward, her eyes seeming to look at each of them individually. "Legally speaking, all 3 of you are what is known as financially compromised. You would be deemed ineligible, completely unqualified, to act as a fiduciary or a trustee for any financial instrument. You are, in blunt legal terms, a profound liability." She let that hang in the air. "The idea," she concluded, her voice dripping with the faintest trace of, not contempt, but finality, "of any of you managing Miss Simone's $500,000 asset is not only inadvisable, it is legally absurd. The words, legally absurd. They hit Chloe like a physical blow. Her legs just gave out. She didn't faint. She just folded. She slid down the wall she was leaning against, landing in a heap on my new hardwood floor. Brenda, my mother, was now openly, hysterically sobbing, just loud, ugly, gasping sobs, her hands covering her face. No, 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 no. My father did not move. He was a statue of a broken man, his eyes squeezed shut, his shoulders shaking in a silent, defeated tremor. The trap had not just sprung, it had vaporized them. I let the legal verdict from Cynthia Williams hang in the room. The sound of my mother's sobbing and Chloe's whimpering filled the void. My father was still a statue of gray, silent shame. I did not look at them. I turned away and walked slowly to the floor-to-ceiling windows. I looked out at the ocean. The sun was bright. The waves were calm. It was a perfect day. You know, I said, my voice quiet, just loud enough to make them strain to hear me. I knew. My mother's sobbing hitched. Knew. What? She whispered through her tears. I knew about the $40,000 home equity loan. I said, still watching the waves. I knew Dad lost his job. It's public record. I've been monitoring the foreclosure notices on your house for the last 2 weeks. I heard my father take a sharp, ragged breath. I continued. I knew that the $30,000 you pulled out 18 months ago was for Chloe, and I knew you were running out of time. I turned back from the window. I looked at my mother. Her eyes, red and puffy, were wide, staring at me, and in them I saw something new. Not just panic. It was hope. A desperate, grasping, ugly hope. She actually thought, that this was my prelude to a rescue. She thought I was telling her this to show her I was about to save them. I let that hope sit there for a beat. I let her feel it. I let her crave it. Then I let my face go as cold as the deep water in front of me. I had already made arrangements. I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. I was going to use my end-of-year bonus. I was going to pay off that $40,000 loan. All of it, in one payment. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, Simone, she breathed. Oh, God, Simone. It was, I said, cutting her off, my voice dropping to an icy whisper, going to be my birthday present. To you and Dad. The hope in her eyes died. It just went out, replaced by a dawning, sickening horror. Oh, I wasn't done, I said. I turned my gaze from my mother and landed it on my sister Chloe, who was still a heap on the floor, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. And you, Chloe, I said. I walked over and stood above her. $52,800, a 515 credit score. She stammered. I knew about that too, I said. I've known for 6 months. I've been watching your interest accumulate. So I took the liberty of contacting a debt consolidation firm on your behalf. I had $52,800 sitting in an escrow account ready to be wired. I had already negotiated a pay-for-delete settlement with American Express and Chase. One single clean payment. To wipe your slate. To let you and Chad start your new life with zero debt. Chloe was just staring. She couldn't process it. My mother and father were frozen. This was the moment. The final twist. They thought I was a victim they could bully. They thought I was an ATM they could strongarm. They had no idea I wasn't a victim. I was the one holding every single one of their strings. I had been preparing to save them. I had been planning to give them the grace they had never ever given me. My voice was a low, final cutting blade. But then my birthday came. I let the words hang. Then my family forgot about me for the 5th year in a row. Then, instead of a phone call, I got a demand for ice. Then, after I bought my house with my money, you didn't drive 5 hours to apologize. You drove 5 hours to invade. You walked into my home, claimed my bedrooms, and demanded I give you $30,000 for a party. You came here to take from the one person who was actually planning to give. I looked at my mother's broken face. I looked at my father's shame. I looked at Chloe's utter disbelief. So no, I said. I will not be paying for your party, Chloe. And Mom, Dad, good luck with the foreclosure, the wire transfer from my escrow account. It was canceled at 9 a.m. this morning. I finally turned to Chad, the investment guru. He was still standing there, his face pale, his mind finally catching up. And you, Chad, I said, you wanted to manage my assets? You wanted to put my house in a trust that you could control. I let out a short, cold laugh. You can't even manage your own fiancé. You're engaged to a $52,000 liability with a credit score so low she can't even get a department store card. I smiled at him. You're an investment guy. You might want to pull her credit report before you sign that marriage license. Good luck getting a mortgage on anything, ever, with her. I watched his face. I watched the calculation turn to pure, unadulterated disgust. He looked down at Chloe, who was on the floor, her hands outstretched, pleading. Chad, baby, she's lying. He didn't even flinch. He just looked at her, like she was something he had stepped in. He had finally truly seen the bad investment he had made. I disconnected the video call. Cynthia Williams's face vanished, and the television screen went black, reflecting the ruined, shattered people in my living room. For a moment, the only sound was my mother's ragged, hysterical sobbing. I walked past them. I walked to my new front door, the one they had burst through with such entitlement just an hour before. I opened it wide. The ocean breeze from the hallway, cool and clean, washed in, clearing out the toxic, stagnant air of their drama. I turned back to them. My mother was on the couch, her face buried in her hands. My father was still in his chair, a gray, empty shell of a man. Chloe was still on the floor, looking up at me with wide, empty, horrified eyes. Chad was standing by the window, his back to everyone, just staring out at the ocean. My lawyer is done, I said. My voice was not loud. It was calm. It was final. And I am too. I looked at each of them. Now please, all of you, get out of my house. The words, so simple, so quiet, finally broke my mother's hysteria. She shot up from the couch, her face a mess of tears and running makeup. Simone, she shrieked, lurching toward me. Simone, you can't do this. We're your family. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. You're going to let your parents be homeless. You're going to let us lose our house after everything we've given you. I looked down at her hand on my arm. I looked at her, my mother, the woman who was supposed to protect me, the woman who had instead offered me up as a sacrifice to her favorite child time and time again. I didn't pull my arm away, I just waited. Given me, I asked, my voice genuinely curious. Given me what, Mom? A childhood of being invisible, 5 years of forgotten birthdays, a lifetime of being second best. I looked her dead in the eyes. Family doesn't forget each other for 5 years in a row. Family doesn't demand they support. Family doesn't take. You made your choice. You've been making it for 27 years. You chose your golden child. You poured every cent, every hope, every bit of love you had into her. I nodded toward Chloe, who was now crawling to her feet. So now, let her take care of you. I pulled my arm from my mother's grasp and she stumbled back as if she had been struck. I turned my gaze to my father. He was finally looking at me. His eyes were red. He was pleading. Simone, he whispered, his voice broken. Daughter, please. I was always your daughter, Dad, I said. I was your daughter when I was paying you rent to live in your attic. I was your daughter when I was begging you to come to my college graduation. But you went to Chloe's spring formal instead. I was your daughter every time you let Mom and Chloe humiliate me at the dinner table. And you never said a word. You never stood up for me. You just stood with them. So right now, you can stand with them." He flinched and looked away. He had no defense. He had never had one. "Get out," I said again. It was over. The fight was gone. Defeated in a way I had never seen, they began to move. It was the slowest, most painful exit I had ever witnessed. My father Marcus seemed to have aged 20 years. He couldn't even look at me. He walked, shuffled past me out the door and stood in the hallway, his back to me. My mother, Brenda, was a wreck. She was sobbing. "You'll regret this, Simone. You'll regret this." But there was no conviction in her voice. It was just a pathetic, empty threat. She stumbled out after my father. Chloe was last. She was still in shock, her face white and blotchy. She was walking like a zombie. As she passed Chad, who was still by the window, she reached out a trembling hand. "Chad," she whispered. "Baby, let's go. Let's get out of here. She's a monster." Chad didn't move for a second. Then he turned. He didn't look at her with love. He didn't look at her with pity. He looked at her with a cold, pure, calculated disgust. Chloe tried to grab his arm. "Chad?" He ripped his arm away from her touch as if her skin was toxic. "Don't touch me!" he hissed, his voice venomous. "Don't you ever touch me!" "What? What are you talking about?" she whimpered, her world collapsing. "You lied to me," he said, his voice low and shaking with rage. $52,000. A 515 credit score. Do you know what that does to me? To my credit, to our future?" He laughed, a short, ugly sound. "You're not a brand. You're a fraud. You're a $50,000 liability." "No!" she cried, grabbing for him again. "No, Chad, I love you. We can fix it. She can fix it. Tell her, baby, we can—" Chad just pushed her away. He straightened his jacket. He looked past her. At me. He looked at me standing by the door of my $500,000 apartment with my $200,000 a year job. And in his eyes I saw it all. The regret, the fury, the dawning, sickening realization that he had bet everything on the wrong sister. "I'm done here," he said, not to Chloe, but to me. Then he turned, adjusted his cuffs, and walked straight out the door. He walked past my sobbing, broken parents. He walked right past his fiancée. He didn't look back. He just left her there, a crumpled, wailing heap in the hallway of a luxury apartment building. My mother and father just stood there watching their golden child, their perfect investment, their entire life's work, completely and utterly self-destruct on the floor. I looked at the scene. The three of them. Ruined. I took a step back into my home. And I closed the door. The click of the deadbolt was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I leaned my back against the solid wood. The silence of the apartment washed over me. It was clean. It was mine. It was sweet. For a long time after, there was only silence. The chaos was gone. The yelling, the crying, the accusations. It had all been pushed out into the hallway, and then finally, it was gone. I could hear the faint sound of the elevator bell dinging in the distance, carrying them away. I stood with my back against the door for a full 5 minutes, just breathing. I was breathing in the air of my own home. It smelled like sea salt and new paint. It smelled clean. The adrenaline began to fade, and it didn't leave me tired or shaky. It left me feeling light. It left me feeling done. I walked through the quiet living room, straightening the pillow Chloe had thrown. I picked up my lemon water, which was warm now, and poured it down the sink. I went to the refrigerator and took out the bottle of Veuve Clicquot. There was still half a bottle left. I poured a fresh, full glass, the bubbles fizzing cheerfully. I walked out onto the balcony. The sun was beginning to set. The sky over the Atlantic was on fire, a spectacular, impossible blaze of orange and deep purple and fiery gold. It was the most beautiful sunset I had ever seen. I raised my glass to it, a toast to me. I took a long, slow sip. It was cold and sharp and perfect. The noise of my family felt 1,000 miles away. The drama, the foreclosure, Chad's disgust, Chloe's collapse. It was like a bad movie I had just walked out of. It was their problem. It was their consequence. It was finally not mine. As I stood there watching the sun melt into the ocean, my phone, which I had left on the patio table, began to ring. For a split second, my stomach tightened. I thought Brenda, calling from a new number, but I looked at the screen. It was not a number I recognized. It was not an Atlanta area code. It was an international call. The country code was +41, Switzerland. My heart didn't jump. It settled. This was not a surprise. This was the schedule. I set my champagne glass down. I took one more deep breath of the ocean air, centering myself. Then I picked up the phone. My voice when I answered was not the voice of the daughter who had just been in a war. It was the voice of the global director I was about to become. Calm, confident, professional. Bonjour, Monsieur Dubois. I said, a small, genuine smile touching my lips. His voice came through clear and accented. Ah, Simone. Bonsoir. I hope I am not calling at a bad time. Not at all, sir, I said. It's the perfect time. Wonderful, he replied. I was calling to follow up. I know we gave you the weekend to think about our offer. We are very eager for your answer. I looked out at the ocean, at the last sliver of the sun disappearing. This was the real plan. This was always plan A. The house. The house was just a stepping stone. It was a place to land. It was a way to untether myself, to liquidate my assets, and to show myself that I was no longer the girl in the attic. The confrontation with my family. It wasn't the goal. It was just housekeeping. It was just taking out the trash before the real move. I picked up my champagne glass again. Monsieur Dubois, I said, my voice clear and steady. Yes, I have thought about it. I have thought about it very carefully. I took a sip. And I am delighted to accept. I could hear his audible sigh of relief on the other end. Fantastic. Oh, that is fantastic news, Simone. The board will be thrilled. We will start the visa paperwork immediately. Thank you, sir, I said. I'm looking forward to it. So, he continued, the position is Global Director of Data Analytics. Your office will be here at the headquarters in Zurich. Is that still acceptable? Zurich is wonderful, I said, smiling at the vast open water. It's exactly what I was hoping for. And your start date is a month from now, too soon. Can you be here by the 1st? I thought about my apartment in Atlanta, the lease I had already terminated. I thought about my old Honda, which I had already posted for sale. I thought about the ruined, broken people I had just left in the hallway, who were now on a 5-hour drive back to a life that was about to implode. A life I had no part in. A life I had just saved myself from. A month is perfect, I said. I can be on a plane by next week. Wonderful. Welcome to the team, Simone. We will be in touch tomorrow. We said our goodbyes and I hung up. I stood there on the balcony of my house in the warm twilight. I was alone. Truly, completely, and beautifully alone. I had not just won. I had not just gotten revenge. I had escaped. I looked down at my phone one last time. There was one new text. It was from my father. One last pathetic attempt. It just said, "You are still our daughter." I looked at it. I thought about the foreclosure. I thought about Chloe's debt. I thought about my mother's desperation. Then I blocked his number. I blocked my mother's. I blocked Chloe's. I turned my phone off, silencing their chaos for good. That's right, I whispered to the ocean. I'm not. I had nothing holding me here at all. I was free. Kien nu daden. This story teaches that your value is not determined by your family's validation. True power comes from quietly building your own success and financial independence, separate from their opinions. Simone's strength wasn't just her money, it was her knowledge and her meticulous secret preparation. She transformed from the invisible one into the one holding all the cards. The ultimate freedom isn't just financial, it's the profound realization that you no longer need approval from people who consistently chose to underestimate you. It's the moment you finally and completely choose yourself. When did you realize that your own success was the only validation you ever truly needed? Share your moment of clarity in the comments below.